Good evening and thank you for joining us. Well, yes, so far some results have been released and soon there will be more results that will be announced by the Commission. What's your impression of the ones that have been released so far?
Well, we are cautiously optimistic. The trend so far as we are concerned, is something that is encouraging, and we sincerely hope and pray that it continues along this line. And like I said earlier, we are very confident of victory in this exercise, and we continue to wait to see the next set of results.
Well, so far, because the big ones, the states, as some of the analysts here have said, the states that will bring in the big votes, Garba said that much, have not come. But Garba is also optimistic that when those results come in, in fact, he did a score. He says 70-30, 70 for his party, 30 for your party.
Well, you know, it's a sign of a large measure of delusion when people come up with that kind of projection, simply because they want to give their supporters the impression that they're so far ahead. You know, I think we're a little bit more circumspect than the APC in the way we operate, and I think we should just wait to see what's going to happen. But I can assure you that Shehu Garba and Lai Mohammed and all those on the other side will get the biggest shocker of their life at the end of the day. One thing I think we can all agree on is that this is a very, very close election. It's probably going to be the closest election in the history of Nigeria. And like one of your participants there said earlier, I think it was Ogunso, he's absolutely right that we're neck and neck right now. But as far as we are concerned, we will pull through. I mean, look, there are many, many states. I mean, Rivers is there, and so many others. Enugu was an extraordinary result for us, and so many others that are still there that are yet to be announced. And
Mr.
we are
Fani
looking forward to all these
it's
things being
interesting
announced.
that... okay,
Hello?
If you can hear me,
Hello?
I may just jump in here. It's interesting, your response. You said the opposition will get the shock of their lives. Are you privy to something that we don't know here?
No,
because it's only
really.
9 results that we have already.
I think, you know, if you are familiar with the way in which this whole process works, you would accept the fact that I don't need to be privy to any kind of special information or knowledge to be able to give a reasonably good projection about this, simply because we had polling agents at every single polling unit in this country when these elections were taking place. We have our own situation room, we have ways of gathering our own information, and we have our own projection. And it's based on that we come up with these projections. Now, what I'm telling you is that this is a very close election. It will be a very close election. But we believe that at the end of the day, we'll pull through. But any kind of suggestion that one side or the other will win by, you know, 70%, the other has 20 or 30% is absolute bunkum. And it's just not true. It's what you call propaganda.
Let me get your thoughts on this. Are you satisfied so far with the process that we've gone through as a country, talking about this elections?
Well, that's a good question. And I'll tell you that I have some reservations about the way in which this whole thing has been conducted so far. Some very, very grave and serious ones. First of all, I'm a little bit disturbed when I see a situation whereby, particularly in the Northwest, we have many in the core northern parts, we have seen many underage voters voting in this election. And they are APC voters. The allegation is that many of them were drafted in from outside the country, from Chad and Niger Republic, and they are voting, and we have pictures of them. That is something of concern. We're also concerned by some of the violence that's being indulged in some parts by APC supporters in the name of protest. Now, these are just some of the concerns. We also have some concerns about the card reader system. Let me give you one thing that does give us immense concern. The fact that you cannot change the rules midway through the stream. Initially, we started with card readers. That was the norm. We had major issues with the card readers. We had blown the whistle on this a couple of weeks before the election took place. Nobody listened. The election started, and even our candidates found it difficult to be registered and so on and so forth. Well, everybody knows about that. The next thing that happened, INEC changed the rules and said that we should have a manual system. And of course, that was taken advantage of by the supporters of the APC in the corner, particularly in the Northwest. They came out And they were just, using the manual system to vote and thumbprint and so on and so forth. And of course, that presents a major challenge. And as far as we're concerned, it's likely that we're going to challenge some of the results that appear to be coming from the Northwest. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. At the end of the day, what we are concerned about is the fact that we must have a free and fair election where everybody that is eligible to vote is able to vote without any interference. And that's our focus, and we sincerely hope that that's what will happen at the end of the day.
Okay. Well, a lot of us have been waiting, itching to know what exactly are the other figures from the other states. Tell us this sort of delay that we've seen in the results coming out. How does it pan out with you and your party?
Well, so far it is not too bad. We are monitoring. We're very reluctant to start saying more than we've already said. But what I will tell you, though, is that we have stood by, everything we've said in the past. I stand by that. Our projection is clear. We believe that at the end of the day, like we said earlier on today, that we're likely to win, by God's grace, by at least maybe 2 million votes or so on and so forth. And that's all that matters to us. All we need is to have that majority and that spread. Now, some are saying that they have super votes in some so-called super states, and it will somehow knock us out. I repeat, they are going to have the biggest shocker of their lives simply because we did reasonably well in some of those so-called super states. And that is in the tradition of the PDP, and I have no doubt whatsoever that at the end of the day, we will be the first to cross the line.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you support the notion that Nigeria should be graduating? As a matter of fact, the whole of Africa should be graduating towards deploying technology that allows for real-time declaration of results.
Well, there's so much to that question. And if I were to tell you my views about that, we'd probably be here for the next 1 hour. But I think it's something that we should look at and consider the pros and cons, and then come to a decision based on consensus. There are so many issues when it comes to elections in this country. That doesn't surprise me because we're a country that, is very complicated in many ways. So we have to factor in so much. But what I think is important, though, is to acknowledge the fact that, we haven't got it 100% yet. A lot still needs to be done. We need to work on it. We need to strengthen INEC. We need to ensure that INEC plays it according to the rules and is above board in all its ways. And we need to get in a system that everybody is comfortable with. We're not entirely comfortable with this card reader system. We're not entirely comfortable with many things that INEC have done. But we have no choice but to live with it because there's nothing we can do about it as of now.
In the event that things don't turn out the way you project, what happens?
We have always said, right from the outset, that we are prepared to accept the announcement of any election result that is a true manifestation of the will of the Nigerian people. As long as it's free and fair, and as long as it is truly the will of the Nigerian people, we're prepared to live with it. However, what we will not accept is any kind of interference with the electoral process by INEC or by the opposition or by anybody else. If at the end of the day they announce election results that are not a true manifestation of the will of the Nigerian people and that are not free and fair, we shall resist it with everything that is available to us. That you can be rest assured of.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Femi.
Thank you very much for having me.